Listen carefully. Your life is not controlled by luck, talent, or circumstances. It is controlled by one thing only: your ability to control yourself. Every regret you carry, every habit you can't break, every goal you abandoned, none of it happened because you didn't know what to do. It happened because in the moment that mattered, you obeyed impulse instead of command. This audiobook will not motivate you. It will reprogram how you respond to discomfort, temptation, boredom, and fear. Master self-control, and everything else follows. Fail here, and nothing saves you. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Self-control is the only real power. Listen closely. If there is one misunderstanding that ruins lives quietly, it is this: people believe power comes from talent, intelligence, confidence, or luck. It does not. Real power comes from self-control. Not motivation, not personality, not inspiration. Self-control. You have a choice, and that choice shows up every single day in small, uncomfortable moments. Most people lose their lives in those moments. They don't lose loudly. They don't fail dramatically. They simply obey impulse instead of command. That's the key. Discipline is not something you are born with. It is something you train. And you train it the same way you train a muscle, through repeated resistance under discomfort. Let's destroy the myth right now. Discipline is not about being naturally strong. It is not about being wired differently. It is not about being special. It is about repetition. You have a choice. Look around you. The world is full of people with average intelligence, average talent, average beginnings, who outperform gifted individuals by decades. Why? Because talent without control collapses under pressure. A gifted mind with no discipline becomes lazy. A talented body with no control becomes inconsistent. A smart person with no self-command becomes distracted. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to your level of self-control. That's the truth most people don't want to hear. Motivation is emotional. Emotions change. Self-control is mechanical. It works even when you don't feel like it. Power is not how hard you push. It's how often you refuse. Refuse the second cookie. Refuse the snooze button. Refuse the excuse. Refuse the easy way out. That refusal compounds, silently, invisibly, relentlessly. You don't see it today. You don't feel it tomorrow. But months later, the disciplined person looks lucky, and the undisciplined person looks confused. Same opportunities, different responses. You have a choice. Most people think self-control means forcing yourself to do hard things. That's only half of it. Self-control is also about not doing what weakens you. Not checking the phone. Not reacting emotionally. Not quitting early. Not explaining yourself to people who don't matter. You don't need their permission. You don't need validation. You don't need applause. You need control. Every refusal strengthens your identity. Every indulgence weakens it. And identity is not what you say you are. Identity is what you do when no one is watching. That's the key. Self-control does not feel good in the beginning. It feels restrictive. It feels boring. It feels uncomfortable. That discomfort is the training. Your nervous system is learning a new rule. I do not obey impulse. At first, your mind will fight you. It will say, just this once.
You deserve a break. Tomorrow will be better. Those are not thoughts. Those are tests. You have a choice. When you fail a test, don't dramatize it. Don't shame yourself. Don't quit. Correct and continue. Self-control is not perfection. It is direction. Power is not how hard you push, it's how often you refuse. If you do not control yourself, something else will. Your phone, your cravings, other people's opinions, your past habits. Either you command yourself or you obey something weaker. That's the foundation of everything that follows.
Chapter 2. Stop negotiating with weakness. Most people think they fail because life is hard. That's not true. They fail because they keep negotiating with weakness. Every time you argue with yourself, you weaken your authority. Every time you explain instead of act, you train disobedience. That's the key. Let's talk about the most dangerous habit you have. Explaining yourself. You explain why you didn't start. You explain why today was different. You explain why tomorrow will be better. And every explanation weakens self-respect. That's the key. Explanation feels harmless, but explanation trains disobedience. The disciplined mind does not explain. It executes. Most people believe willpower is the problem. It's not. The problem is internal dialogue. Weak questions create weak outcomes. Do I feel like it? Is today the right day? Can I do it later? Those are escape routes. Strong people ask different questions. What is the command? What must be done? What does discipline require right now? You have a choice. Weak language creates hesitation. Strong language creates movement. I'll try is weak. I will is strong. I should is weak.
I do is strong. Language trains behavior. That's the key. Command-based thinking means this. You decide once. Then you stop revisiting the decision. No daily negotiation, no mood check, no emotional vote. This is how disciplined people conserve energy. They don't fight temptation, they remove discussion. Rules eliminate debate. I don't miss workouts. I don't scroll before work. I don't negotiate with myself. No emotion, no drama, just execution. When you remove options, resistance weakens. Your nervous system learns a new rule. This happens no matter what. And when something feels inevitable, the mind stops fighting it. That's discipline without force. You have a choice. Live in constant negotiation or live under clear commands. Negotiation drains energy. Commands create momentum. Momentum restores self-trust. Self-trust becomes confidence. Confidence becomes calm. This is not motivation. This is structure. Here is your instruction. Starting today, listen for the first excuse. Not the 10th one, the first one. Just this once. Interrupted immediately. Say internally, decision already made. Repeated if needed. Decision already made. Decision already made. That phrase cuts weakness off at the source. You don't need perfection, you need authority. Authority comes from consistency. And consistency comes from eliminating negotiation. You stopped negotiating with weakness. Now you must understand the next truth. Even when excuses are gone, the brain still hesitates. Not because it's weak, but because it's trained. That's what we fix next.
Here is the uncomfortable truth. No one is coming to save you from your excuses. No one is coming to force discipline into your life. And that is not bad news. That is power. Because it means control is already yours. You don't need their permission. You don't need validation. You don't need accountability partners forever. You need command. Weakness survives on conversation. Strength survives on action. The more you talk to weakness, the stronger it gets. The less you engage it, the weaker it becomes. That's the key. Self-control is not about fighting yourself. It's about refusing to negotiate. When the mind says later, you act now. When the body says rest, you move anyway. When emotion says avoid, you engage. Not aggressively, decisively. Every time you obey yourself, trust grows. Every time you delay, trust erodes. And trust determines identity. People don't fail because they lack discipline. They fail because they don't trust themselves anymore. That distrust comes from repeated self-betrayal, small, daily, ignored. Today, that ends. You have a choice. Stop explaining, stop justifying, stop negotiating. Start executing. Weakness speaks softly. Authority speaks once. Decision already made. Say it again. Decision already made. You learned how negotiation destroys discipline. Now it's time to learn something deeper. Because even with strong commands, the mind still resists. Not through excuses, but through hesitation. You've removed negotiation. Now you must move. Chapter 3. The brain obeys action, not intention. You were taught the wrong order. Think first. Feel ready, then act. That advice ruins lives. The brain does not obey intention. It obeys action. That's the key.
You can plan forever and remain unchanged. You can visualize success and stay stuck. Because the brain is not convinced by thoughts, it is convinced by proof. And proof only comes from movement. You have a choice. Wait for confidence or act without it. Most people wait. That's why most people stay exactly where they are. The brain is a prediction machine. It predicts who you are based on what you repeatedly do. Not what you promise, not what you think, what you do. If you hesitate, your brain learns hesitation. If you delay, your brain learns delay. If you avoid, your brain learns avoidance, and it remembers. But when you act, especially while uncomfortable, the brain updates. We move. We handle discomfort. We survive. Identity follows action, not the other way around. You don't think your way into courage. You act your way into it. Say it clearly. Do first, feel later. Most people reverse this order, and they stay stuck forever. Confidence is not a prerequisite, it's a result. That's the key. Look at anyone you admire. They were once uncertain, unprepared, uncomfortable. They didn't wait to feel differently. They acted differently. Action trained the brain. The brain did not train the action. You have a choice. Keep thinking or start proving. Your brain asks one question constantly. What do we do when this feels uncomfortable? Every avoidance answers that question. Every action rewrites it. That's how change actually happens.
Affirming without action are noise. Visualization without movement is fantasy. The brain responds to behavior, not belief. You don't need to feel motivated. You need to start. The brain does not need success. It needs evidence. One email sent. One page written. One set started. That's enough. Once you start, resistance weakens. Clarity improves. Momentum appears. Not because you're special, because the brain obeys action.
Here is your rule. Never ask how you feel before acting. Ask one question instead. What action proves who I am becoming? Then do it. No delay, no drama, no discussion. Action sends proof to the brain. Proof creates identity. Identity simplifies behavior. That's the system. Do first, feel later. Say it again. Do first, feel later. You don't need insight. You need movement. Movement changes everything. You've learned how to eliminate negotiation. You've learned how action rewires identity. Now it's time to understand where strength is truly built. Because most people quit not from fear, but from discomfort. And that's where we go next. Chapter 4. Discomfort is the training ground. Discomfort is not your enemy. That's the first correction you must make. You were trained to treat discomfort as danger. Your brain reacts to it like a threat. Avoid it, escape it, soften it, delay it. That reflex is not intelligence. It's conditioning. Discomfort is not a signal to stop. It is feedback. And feedback is how strength is built. You have a choice. You always have a choice. Every time discomfort appears, you decide what it means. If you label it as danger, your nervous system retreats. If you label it as training, your nervous system adapts. That's the key. Your nervous system is not fixed. It is programmable. And it programs itself based on what you repeatedly survive. Not what you imagine. Not what you plan. What you live through. If discomfort were truly dangerous, growth would be impossible. Every athlete would be broken. Every leader would collapse. Every disciplined person would quit. But they don't. They train where others retreat. What you resist weakens you. What you face trains you. Say it again. What you resist weakens you. What you face trains you. Most people live in avoidance loops. They avoid hard conversations. They avoid physical strain. They avoid silence. They avoid boredom. They avoid being seen trying. And then they wonder why they feel fragile. Fragility is not weakness. Fragility is underexposure. Your system has not been trained. Think about the body. Muscle grows only when resistance damages it slightly. No resistance means no growth. Too much resistance breaks it. But controlled resistance strengthens it. The mind works the same way. Anxiety does not disappear when avoided. It disappears when it survives. Discipline does not appear when life gets easier. It appears when difficulty becomes familiar. That's the mistake most people make. They wait for comfort before acting. But comfort never trains capacity. Discomfort does. You don't need their permission to feel uncomfortable. You don't need approval to struggle. You don't need validation to endure. You have a choice. Look at the contrast. One person avoids discomfort at all costs. They design their life around ease. They seek shortcuts. They numb friction. They eliminate challenges. Their nervous system learns one thing: retreat. Another person seeks controlled resistance, not chaos, not destruction, training. Cold showers instead of comfort, hard conversations instead of silence, workouts instead of excuses, focus instead of distraction. Their nervous system learns something else: capacity. Same human, different training. The second person doesn't feel fearless, they feel regulated. That's the difference no one explains. Fearlessness is a myth. Regulation is real. When discomfort becomes familiar, panic disappears. When effort becomes routine, resistance fades. When struggle becomes expected, confidence stabilizes. It's not about courage, it's about exposure. You don't rise to bravery, you adapt to pressure. That's the key. Discomfort is not telling you something is wrong, it's telling you something is new. Your brain hates the unfamiliar, not because it's harmful, but because it hasn't mapped it yet. Every time you stay present in discomfort without escaping, the brain updates its map. This didn't kill me. This didn't overwhelm me. This didn't break me.
One hard thing per day. One thing you don't want to do. One thing that tightens the chest slightly. Not dramatic, consistent. Because consistency trains the nervous system faster than intensity. You don't need extremes. You need exposure. It's not about pain. It's about tolerance. And tolerance creates freedom. When you can tolerate discomfort, you are no longer controlled by it. You have a choice. When discomfort shows up, stop reacting emotionally. Name it. This is discomfort, not danger. This is training. This is what strength feels like in real time. Your body listens to language. Then slow your breathing. Long exhale, short inhale. Calm the system first, then act. Action is the final signal. Not affirmations, not visualization, movement. Stay. Finish the set, make the call, write the sentence, hold the silence. Every completion rewires trust. You begin to trust yourself again. That's what discipline really is, self-trust under pressure. Avoidance feels good short-term, but it compounds weakness. Exposure feels hard short-term, but it compounds power. You decide which debt you pay. Discomfort is not punishment, it is preparation. And once you understand that, you stop fearing difficulty. You start respecting it. You've learned how discomfort builds capacity. Now it's time to talk about what keeps most people stuck waiting.
Chapter 5. Discipline beats motivation every time. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is mechanical. That difference decides your future. Most people wait to feel ready. They wait to feel inspired. They wait to feel confident. They wait to feel motivated. And while they wait, nothing changes. That's the trap. Motivation feels powerful, but it is unstable. It depends on mood. It depends on energy. It depends on yesterday. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. That's the key. Motivation asks, do I feel like it? Discipline asks, what's the command? You have a choice. When motivation disappears, and it always does, discipline is the only thing left standing. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline shows up. Say it again. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline shows up. Most people confuse excitement with progress. They think intensity equals growth. It doesn't. Intensity burns fast. Discipline burns slow. And slow is what lasts. You don't build a life on feelings. You build it on systems. That's why disciplined people look calm. They already decided. They don't negotiate. They don't debate. They execute. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the engine. Engines don't need cheering. They need maintenance. Look at professionals. Athletes train on schedule. Surgeons follow procedure. Pilots trust checklists. They don't rely on mood. Because discipline protects results. Emotion endangers them. Creators who last don't wait for inspiration. They publish when views are low. They publish when no one is watching. Motivation comes after momentum, not before. That's the key. You don't feel ready and then start. You start and then feel ready. Motivation follows action.
Discipline creates action. You don't need perfect timing. You need non-negotiables. If it's important, it must be automatic. Same time, same place, same rule. Discipline is boring, and boring builds power. Your brain hates boredom. That's why discipline feels uncomfortable at first. But discomfort is not danger. It's training. Every time you act without motivation, you strengthen authority over yourself. Every time you wait for motivation, you give that authority away. You have a choice. Pick one habit you keep postponing. 1. Remove emotion from it. Not when I feel like it, but this happens at this time. That's discipline.
Motivation feels good, but it lies. It says action comes later. Discipline tells the truth. Action comes first. Motivation says reward yourself now. Discipline says earn it. Discipline is self-respect in action. Keep promises, confidence grows. Break promises, doubt grows. That's why disciplined people feel grounded. Structure creates safety. Your nervous system trusts repetition, not hype. The first week is hard. The second week is uncomfortable. The third week is normal. Then it becomes who you are. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline shows up. Say it again. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline shows up. This is not rigidity. This is reliability. And reliability changes identity. You don't need more motivation videos. You need fewer decisions. Decide once. Execute daily. That's discipline. And discipline is not punishment. It's freedom. You've learned how discipline outlasts motivation. Now it's time to go deeper. Because discipline is not just action. It's identity. Chapter 6. Identity is built through repetition.
Identity is not something you discover. Identity is something you train. That's the first truth you need to accept. You are not who you think you are. You are not who you say you are. You are not who you plan to become. You are who you repeatedly act as, especially under pressure. That's the key. Most people wait for their identity to arrive before they act. They say, once I feel confident, I'll speak up. Once I feel disciplined, I'll stay consistent. Once I feel motivated, I'll start. That is backward. Identity does not create behavior. Behavior creates identity. And every single action you take is casting a vote. Every action is a vote for who you become. Not the big actions, not the dramatic moments. The small, boring, unglamorous decisions you make every day. You have a choice. You always have a choice. When the alarm goes off and you hit snooze, you are voting. When you avoid the hard conversation, you are voting. When you keep scrolling instead of starting, you are voting. When you quit early, you are voting. And those votes add up. You don't wake up one day confident, disciplined, or focused. You train yourself into those identities. Or you train yourself out of them. That's the danger most people never see. They think small actions don't matter. They think it's just one day. It's just this once. I'll fix it tomorrow. But tomorrow is built from today. That's the key.
Self-respect is not a feeling. Self-respect is a byproduct. It comes from doing what you said you would do, even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching. You don't gain confidence by thinking positive thoughts. You gain confidence by keeping promises to yourself. And every time you break a promise to yourself, something else grows. Self-doubt. Quiet. Invisible. Accumulating. That's how people lose belief in themselves. Not from failure, from repeated self-betrayal.
Every skipped commitment whispers the same message to your mind. You can't be trusted, and your brain listens. You don't need their permission. You don't need validation. You don't need approval. You need alignment between your words and your actions. That's it. Identity is not built in moments of motivation. It is built in moments of resistance. When you don't feel like it, when it's uncomfortable, when it would be easier to quit. Those are the moments that matter. You have a choice. You always have a choice. Most people think pressure reveals who you are. That's wrong. Pressure creates who you are. Under pressure, you default to your training, and your training is repetition. If you repeatedly avoid discomfort, you train avoidance. If you repeatedly delay action, you train hesitation. If you repeatedly push through resistance, you train strength. It's not about talent. It's not about intelligence. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. It's not about who you want to be. It's about what you do when no one forces you. That's the key. Let's make this practical. If you want to become someone who follows through, start finishing small things. If you want to become disciplined, create non-negotiables so small you can't argue with them. If you want confidence, take action before you feel ready. Do not wait for belief. Belief follows behavior. Say that again. Belief follows behavior. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. And habits are nothing more than repeated actions. Every action is a vote for who you become. When you wake up on time, you vote for discipline. When you train despite low energy, you vote for resilience. When you tell the truth instead of avoiding conflict, you vote for integrity. And when you lie to yourself, you vote against your future.
That's the part most people don't want to hear. You are not stuck because life is unfair. You are stuck because you keep reinforcing the same identity. But here's the power. Votes can change. You don't need to overturn your life overnight. You need to start voting differently today. One decision, one action, one follow-through. That's it. Stop trying to feel like a new person. Act like one. Identity is not declared, it is demonstrated. You don't become disciplined by saying, "I am disciplined." You become disciplined by doing disciplined things until it becomes normal. Normal is the goal. When discipline feels normal, resistance disappears. That's the key. Most people quit too early because it feels unnatural. Of course it does. You are interrupting an old identity. The discomfort is not a warning sign, it's confirmation you are changing. Stay there. Stay consistent. Do it again tomorrow and the day after that. Over time, the identity shifts. You don't chase confidence, you notice it's there. You don't force discipline, you realize you're already acting disciplined. You don't fake self-respect, you earn it. That's real transformation. Not hype, not motivation, not inspiration. Repetition. Every action is a vote for who you become. You have a choice. You always have a choice. And the choice is simple. Keep reinforcing the identity that keeps you stuck.
or start training the identity that sets you free. Identity is not built in a day. It is built daily. You mastered repetition. Now it's time to protect it.
Chapter 7. Control your inputs. Control your outputs. Look at your life honestly. Not emotionally. Objectively. Your results are not random. Your habits are not accidental. Your behavior is not a mystery. It is the direct output of what you allow into your mind and body every single day. That's the key. Most people think discipline is about willpower. They think it's about trying harder. They think it's about forcing themselves to act differently. They're wrong. Discipline is not built at the moment of action. Discipline is built long before that, at the level of input. What you watch, what you listen to, what you eat, what you scroll, who you spend time with, what noise surrounds you. All of it is programming you. And most people are overexposed. You don't lack discipline, you're overexposed. That's the truth most people don't want to hear. Your brain is not weak, it's overloaded. Your nervous system is not broken, it's overstimulated. You are not lazy. You are constantly distracted, sedated, and interrupted. You have a choice. Every input you allow either sharpens you or dulls you. There is no neutral. That's the key. Let's start with the most powerful drug on the planet: your phone. Your phone is not a tool anymore. It is a slot machine. Every swipe is a hit of novelty. Every notification trains impatience. Every short video conditions your brain to crave instant reward. You tell yourself you'll check for a minute. Minutes turn into hours. Hours turn into fractured attention. And then you wonder why discipline feels impossible. You don't lack discipline. You are overexposed. Your brain has been trained to expect stimulation on demand. So when real work asks for silence, effort, and patience, your mind rebels. That's not a character flaw. That's conditioning. And conditioning can be reversed. You don't need to throw your phone away. You need to control when and how it enters your day. No phone in the first hour of the morning. No phone in the last hour of the night. No notifications that don't serve your mission. You don't need their permission. You don't need to respond instantly. Urgency is a lie sold by people who benefit from your attention. That's the key. Now let's talk about noise. Noise is not just sound. Noise is mental clutter. Endless conversations, background TV, music that never turns off. Your mind needs silence to integrate, reflect, and decide. Without silence, you react instead of choosing. Most people are afraid of silence because silence exposes their thoughts. So they fill every gap with noise. And in doing so, they lose control. You have a choice. Schedule silence like you schedule meetings. Walk without headphones. Sit without distraction. Eat without screens.
Now let's talk about food. Food is not just fuel, it's chemistry. What you eat affects your energy, mood, and impulse control. Ultra-processed food spikes dopamine and crashes focus. Sugar creates false urgency and real fatigue. Then you wonder why discipline feels heavy. You don't lack discipline, you're overexposed. Start simple. Eat fewer times per day. Eat real food. Drink water before stimulation. Now your environment. Your environment is a silent instructor. A cluttered space trains distraction. A clean space reinforces control. Remove unnecessary objects. Design for focus. And finally, people. The people around you shape what feels normal. You don't need to cut everyone off. You need to be selective. Limit exposure to distraction. Increase exposure to standards. You don't need permission to protect your energy. Here's the truth most people miss. Self-control becomes easier when you stop feeding the impulses you're trying to control. You don't need to be stronger. You need to be less exposed. Say it again. You don't lack discipline. You're overexposed. Change inputs. Outputs change automatically. And now that you understand this, it's time to face the silent test. Boredom.
Chapter 8. Boredom is where winners separate.
Chapter 8. Boredom is where winners separate. Boredom is not the enemy. That's the first lie you were taught. You were told boredom is a problem to fix, something to escape, something to drown out with noise, screens, food, people, scrolling, stimulation. That belief has quietly destroyed more potential than failure ever could. Because boredom is not a lack of excitement. Boredom is the moment discipline is tested. And most people fail right there. Not when things are hard, not when things are painful, but when things are quiet. When nothing is happening, when there is no immediate reward. That's the key. Anyone can perform when adrenaline is high. Anyone can act when emotions are strong, but very few people can stay disciplined when nothing is pushing them. You have a choice. Every time boredom shows up, you either train strength or you train weakness. And most people don't even realize they're training. They think they're just taking a break. They think they're just killing time. They think they deserve stimulation because they feel restless. But boredom is not asking to be entertained. Boredom is asking to be mastered. Winners master boredom. Losers escape it. That's not an insult. That's a fact. Look closely at how most people live. The moment they feel bored, they reach for something. A phone, a snack, a conversation, a distraction. They cannot sit still. They cannot stay with the moment. They cannot endure neutrality. And that inability spills into everything. They can't stay consistent with work. They can't stick to routines. They can't finish what they start. Because real progress is boring. There's no applause in repetition. There's no excitement in consistency. There's no dopamine hit in doing the same thing correctly every day. That's why boredom is the filter. That's why boredom separates winners from everyone else.
You don't build a strong body in exciting moments. You build it in repetitive ones. You don't build wealth in thrilling decisions. You build it in boring habits. You don't build discipline when life is dramatic. You build it when life is dull. That's the key. Now let's talk about the two types of people boredom reveals. The first type is the stimulation seeker. This person lives for novelty. They chase excitement. They need constant input to feel alive. They jump from idea to idea, from habit to habit, from motivation spike to motivation crash. They mistake movement for progress. They mistake activity for discipline. And boredom terrifies them, because boredom forces them to face something uncomfortable, their lack of control. So they escape. They scroll. They snack. They distract themselves into numbness. They are busy, but never dangerous. Occupied, but never powerful. You have a choice. The second type is the long-term builder. This person understands something critical. They understand that boredom is not a signal to stop. It is a signal to stay. They don't need excitement to continue. They don't need validation to move forward. They don't need permission to remain disciplined. They show up when nothing feels urgent. They work when no one is watching. They repeat actions long after the novelty dies. And because of that, they compound. Slowly, quietly, relentlessly. That's the difference. Winners master boredom. Losers escape it. Here's the truth most people avoid. Your brain is addicted to stimulation. Not because you're weak, but because it was trained that way. Every time you escape boredom with distraction, you reinforce the habit. Every time you reach for stimulation, you weaken your tolerance for stillness. And tolerance for stillness is power. Because discipline requires the ability to sit inside discomfort without reacting. That's the key. Self-control is not about forcing action. It's about not reacting. Not reacting to boredom, not reacting to restlessness, not reacting to the urge for something new. You don't need their permission. You don't need excitement. You don't need entertainment. You need endurance. So what do you do when boredom hits? You don't fight it. You don't run from it. You use it. Here's the rule. When boredom appears, do the thing that matters most, even if it feels dull. Chapter 9. Calm is a weapon.
Chapter 9. Calm is a weapon. Most people think calm is passive. They are wrong. Calm is not weakness. Calm is not indifference. Calm is not being nice. Calm is control under pressure, and control under pressure is the highest form of self-control. You don't lose your life in moments of peace. You lose it in moments of stress, moments of conflict, moments of urgency, moments when emotions demand action now. That's where most people collapse. They speak too fast. They react too early. They defend too much. They explain too long. They panic, justify, and overshare. And then they wonder why they lose respect, leverage, and clarity.
A disagreement at work. A confrontation with a partner. A financial setback. A public mistake. A sudden crisis. In these moments, people don't rise to intelligence, they fall to conditioning. The untrained person reacts emotionally. They rush. They interrupt. They escalate. The trained person slows down. They breathe. They pause. They observe. And because they slow down, they see what others miss. Calm creates clarity. Clarity creates better decisions. Better decisions change outcomes. That's the key. This is not philosophy. This is physiology. Your breath controls your nervous system. Your nervous system controls your behavior. Shallow breath equals panic. Fast breath equals urgency. Erratic breath equals poor judgment. Steady breath equals stability. Deep breath equals control. Steady breath equals authority. Control the breath, control the moment. Say it again. Control the breath, control the moment. When pressure hits, your first job is not to speak. It is not to act. It is not to respond. Your first job is to breathe. One slow inhale. One controlled exhale. That pause is power. Emotion wants speed. Calm wants precision. Emotion wants relief. Calm wants results. That's why calm wins where emotion loses.
Most people talk too much under pressure. They explain, they justify, they overcorrect. Silence intimidates the unprepared. Silence signals confidence. Silence signals control. You don't need permission to pause. You don't need approval to think. You don't need to fill space with noise. That's the key. When you stay calm and silent, others rush to expose themselves. Let them. You don't master calm in theory. You master it in repetition. Start small. When annoyed, slow the breath. When rushed, pause before responding. When triggered, delay action. Practice calm in low-stakes moments so it appears in high-stakes ones. That's discipline. The calm person cannot be manipulated. Manipulation feeds on reaction. When you react emotionally, others can push you, provoke you, rush you. Calm shuts that down. Calm creates space. Space creates leverage. Self-control is not loud. It is quiet. It is steady. It is relentless. The calm person commands respect without demanding it, because calm signals something powerful. I am not ruled by impulse, and that is rare. You now understand this truth. Calm is not a personality trait. It is a trained weapon. Control the breath. Control the moment. Control the outcome. And now,
only one chapter remains: time.
This is where everything comes together. Not in theory, not in motivation, in reality. Because at the end of all philosophy, all psychology, all advice, there is only one truth left standing. You either command yourself or you obey circumstances. There is no third option. You don't drift into a strong life. You don't accidentally build discipline. You don't stumble into control. Every outcome you experience is the result of a chain you either built or failed to interrupt. That chain is simple: command, action, identity, outcome. That's the framework. And if even one link is weak, the entire system collapses. That's the key. Let's start with the first link: command. Most people don't give themselves commands, they give themselves suggestions. They say, "I should." They say, "I'll try." They say, "Maybe tomorrow." That is not command language. That is hesitation dressed up as intention. A command is final. A command does not check your mood before acting. When you tell yourself, "I will do this no matter how I feel," something changes. Your brain listens differently. Because the mind responds to authority, not emotion. You have a choice. You can speak to yourself like a weak committee debating options, or you can speak to yourself like a leader issuing orders. That's the key. Once the command is given, the second link activates: action. Action is where most people fail. Not because action is hard, but because action exposes truth. Action reveals whether your words mean anything. Anyone can think, anyone can plan, anyone can imagine, but action forces alignment. Action doesn't care about excuses. Action doesn't care about your past. Action only responds to movement. And here's the truth most people avoid. You don't feel ready before action. You feel ready because you acted. That's not motivation, that's biology. Your nervous system adapts to what you repeatedly do. You don't build confidence by thinking about confidence. You build confidence by doing things while uncomfortable. You have a choice: act while unsure or wait forever. That's the key. Now comes the third link: identity. Identity is not what you say you are. It's not what you hope to be. It's not what you believe internally. Identity is what you repeatedly prove through action. Every action you take is a vote. A vote for discipline, or a vote for avoidance. A vote for control, or a vote for impulse. And over time, the votes add up. You don't wake up one day confident. You wake up one day with enough evidence that your brain says, "This is who we are now." That's how identity changes. Not through affirmations, not through visualization, but through repeated obedience to your own commands. That's the key.
Now hear this clearly. No one is coming. No one is coming to save you. No one is coming to hold you accountable. No one is forcing discipline into your life. And that's not bad news. That's power. Because it means control is already in your hands. You don't need their permission. You don't need validation. You don't need perfect conditions. You need command. No one is coming. This is your command. Say it again. No one is coming. This is your command. That phrase is not motivation. It's a reminder of responsibility. And responsibility is freedom. From this moment forward, your life simplifies, not because it becomes easy, but because it becomes clear. When faced with a decision, you don't ask, "How do I feel?" You ask, "What was my command?" When resistance appears, you don't negotiate, you execute. When doubt arises, you don't analyze endlessly, you act anyway. Because discipline is not about intensity, it's about consistency. It's not about being extreme, it's about being exact. That's the key. You now understand the full framework. Command creates action. Action creates identity. Identity creates outcomes. Break the chain and life controls you. Strengthen the chain and you control life. And control, real control, is calm. It's quiet. It's steady. It's unshakable. You have a choice. Every day, every moment. Command yourself or obey circumstances. You've learned how to face discomfort. You've learned how to act without motivation. You've learned how to build identity through repetition. Now the question is not what you know. The question is what you will enforce. Because knowledge without enforcement is entertainment. And this audiobook was never meant to entertain you. It was meant to train you. You either command yourself or you obey circumstances. No one is coming. This is your command. You now understand the truth most people avoid. Self-control is not a restriction. It is freedom. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you reclaim authority over your life. You don't need more knowledge. You don't need more motivation. You need fewer excuses and stronger commands. From this moment forward, stop asking how you feel and start asking what must be done. Act even when it's uncomfortable. Act especially when it's uncomfortable. Because the person who controls themselves controls their future. This is your challenge. Choose one discipline today and obey it without negotiation. Do it again tomorrow. That is how lives are changed.